Halloween movie references. In other words, little Easter eggs, shout outs, and other references to Michael Myers and the wider Halloween franchise in movies that are not Michael Myers movies or otherwise Halloween franchise movies. There's a ton of them, and there's been a ton of them for decades, and and it's a small obsession of mine to try to catalog them and keep track of them and we've been featuring them for years on our site at HalloweenDailyNews.com. There's a whole section of Michael Myers references articles that I've written over the years, and not just movies. Of course, there's TV shows and songs, but those are for another night and another discussion. For tonight, we're going to focus specifically on movies outside the franchise or outside Michael Myers that have mentioned Michael Myers or the franchise or in some way alluded to them. And again, there are tons. So we're not going to cover them all tonight because that would take a couple nights. Um, but I am going to point out a few of my favorites. I'm tempted to say my top five, but it changes so often. I might change my mind 5 minutes after we get done here and say, oh yeah, I think I like that one better. So they're not officially ranked, but these are definitely some of my favorites. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts on this. References to Michael Myers in movies, it's not a new thing. In fact, it goes back fairly far, and to my best estimation, it began at a place not far from Haddonfield itself. In fact, according to my best estimation, the first reference to Michael Myers in a movie that was not a Michael Myers movie, I'm pretty sure was a little movie called Halloween 3. You guys know what I'm talking about. In Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, of course, the 1982 sequel, the one that featured Dr. Chalice and Connell Cochran and Silver Shamrock, and infamously not Michael Myers. But yet, for anybody that says that Michael Myers is not in the movie, well, of course, they're mistaken because he is in the movie. I mean, Dan Chalice sits at that bar and the TV is playing, and sure enough, the commercial comes on, and you guys know what the commercial is, right? It's the Halloween commercial. It's Michael Myers, and it's an ad for the original Halloween. And there he is. There's the shape. Nick Castle as Michael Myers coming down those stairs on TV in Halloween 3. And, is this the first time that a movie franchise referenced its own self within the franchise? I mean, this was kind of being meta in a way that before, not the social media company, but meta, the way Scream is meta. This was being meta before meta was a thing, before Scream made it a big thing. And just the idea of that movie existing as a movie within the world of Santa Mira and Silver Shamrock, twisted and mind blowing, and just really cool and effective. I've always thought that was really cool and forward thinking of Carpenter and Tommy Lee Wallace and everybody. And if I next time I get to have a conversation with Tommy Lee Wallace, I want to talk to him about that bit specifically, and whose idea that was. But I've always loved that bit. And of course, later on in the film, it's referenced yet again when Connell Cochran turns on the TV, Halloween's playing, it's Laurie crossing the street, he puts the skull mask on Chalice, and he says Happy Halloween, he walks away, and then probably my favorite moment of the whole movie is right there. Cochrane is just giving his speech. The original movie's playing, and then that soundtrack from the original movie on the TV, for those few seconds, it becomes the soundtrack for Halloween 3. I've talked about this before here, but that's genius. That's genius. Um, so, this is not the first on this list of movies to reference the franchise outside the franchise, but it is the first on the list of movies that aren't about Michael Myers and don't have Michael Myers in them, but have little Michael Myers references and shout outs. And Halloween 3, um, pretty big ones. And again, just kind of historic. A franchise referencing itself. Had it been done like that before? I don't know. I just one of the many ways that H3 is so ahead of the curve on so much of this stuff. Let's move on though. Let's move into the 90s now. Let's get outside of the franchise fully and look at one of my other favorite references. Just a brief, quick reference if you're paying attention, but it's there. And again, very interesting that it comes from John Carpenter himself. Many people may not remember this, but John Carpenter's 1993 anthology film Body Bags, which is highly underrated and excellent, by the way, it opens with this news reporter on TV being watched in this gas station talking about Haddonfield and about a murder victim being found, another murder victim being found, and it's believed to be the work of a serial killer. And they even mentioned the name of the sheriff of Haddonfield. It's understandably not Brackett anymore by this time, but again, not a big shout out, not Michael Myers by name or anything, not even meant to be Michael Myers. You know, I don't even take that as that they're necessarily specifically supposed to be alluding to Michael Myers. What I do take it though as is more that it's alluding to Haddonfield being in the same universe, a shared cinematic universe. Again, Carpenter being so ahead of everybody else, creating his own shared cinematic universe before that was a thing, right? And whether it's Michael or not that news report's talking about, I always just took it as it's just pointing out that it's Haddonfield and bad shit's still happening there, you know. And it also plays into this story because they're setting up that there's a serial killer out on the loose. Is it Michael Myers? Is it somebody else? Watch Body Bags and maybe you'll have more of an idea. In any case, it's a great movie if you've never seen it. And yeah, it takes place kind of in the same universe as the Halloween movies. Always thought that was really cool. And especially going all the way back to 93. All right. Now, there's another movie, though, from the 90s that referenced Michael Myers and all of my other favorite horror movies of all time up to that time in ways so effectively, so awesome, so mind-blowing that it became one of my all-time favorite horror movies ever. And you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the original Scream. And I've talked about this here on Michael Myers Monday before. A couple of different times. And I've said it before that no other franchise in existence, no other movie franchise loves the Halloween franchise more then the Scream franchise loves the Halloween franchise. They have mentioned and or referenced this franchise in pretty much every single movie that they've made, in the TV series, all over the place. The love is always there. Um, can't wait to see how they do it in the next Scream, in Scream 7. But that original movie, so effective and so good, so many shout outs. Not going to go through them all now. I mean, the movie begins with Michael Myers' love right there in that first phone call with Drew Barrymore. But by this point in the film, by the end, Randy gives his famous speech about the rules. There's Michael holding the knife right there on the TV, brilliantly. But again, my favorite part of all this that gives me goosebumps every time is the part when Dewey is walking through the house, and Halloween's playing in the background. And all of a sudden, the music from the TV playing Halloween becomes, for a few seconds anyway, the soundtrack of Scream. In the same way that Halloween 3 did it 10 years before, 13 years before. Um, Brilliant, brilliant. I always talk about it. And again, nobody loves Halloween more than Scream. Every movie, right up to the most recent, of course, Scream 6, referenced Michael so much, so many different ways. None more than in this insane subway scene, which I've broken down here on previous Monday nights, and we've talked about it. The subway scene, it takes place on Halloween, and there are people dressed as all of our favorite horror characters, not to mention multiple people dressed as Michael Myers seen throughout this. And not only that, when our characters are walking through this crowd in the subway, not only are we seeing Michael, along with many ghost faces and Pinhead and Jason and all the others, but at one point, right before they get on the bus, on the subway train, you can actually hear the chant of Halloween Kills in the subway. You can definitely hear it. It's again literally a huge shout out. And again, just the love of this franchise for the Halloween franchise. It's pretty unheard of. And that was a little love also to Wilmington, North Carolina, where both Scream 2022 and Halloween Kills were filmed. Actually, the Myers house for HK and Stu's house for Scream 2022 were both built on the exact same soundstage there in Wilmington, North Carolina. So, again, a lot of Michael Myers love in all the Scream movies. That's not the only reason I love all the Scream movies, but it's always fun cataloging them, and I have cataloged them. If you'll recall, before Scream 6 came out, I did a whole thing about all the Michael Myers references and all the Scream movies up to then. Then when Scream 6 came out, I did a whole special report just about that and scenes like this. Isn't that killer? Isn't that just a cool image? I mean, you got two Michael Myerses right there. I mean, there's one right here on the corner of the right-hand screen. You got a ghost face kind of blurred out in the forehand, ghost face in the background, Pinhead. It's just awesome. And I'm going to have to do an update now, like an updated list. But I figured rather than do that right now or this year, let's just wait until next year when Scream 7 comes out, and then I'll do my comprehensive new updated all the Halloween references in all the Scream movies and TV shows. We'll do that for next year, and it'll be around the same time next year because Scream 7 is going to come out at the end of February, so it'll be right about a year from now. So see you in about a year, and we'll talk about more Michael Myers references in Scream 7. Moving on, another one of my all-time favorite references to Michael Myers and the Halloween movie franchise is in the 1998 sequel, Bride of Chucky. That's right. In the opening moments of that film, Chucky proves to be ahead of the game in really kind of a shared slasher universe setup where you see in these evidence lockers Jason's mask. Right here, you can see Freddy's glove on the upper right hand side. And yes, of course, the Boogeyman's mask. That is the Michael Myers mask in Bride of Frankenstein, the 19 or Bride of Frankenstein, in Bride of Chucky, the 1998 sequel. Very, very kind of akin to uh, when Freddy's glove popped up at the end of Jason Goes to Hell. Kind of setting up what could be. Um, just really cool detail in here, and just a fun moment for horror fans that in this Chucky universe, all of a sudden these other slashers exist within Chucky's universe outside of their own franchises. So you gotta love that. Now for my next pick of favorite Michael Myers shout out moments in films, it's got to go to what is maybe the funniest of all of these. Check it out. 2017's Baby Driver. You remember the scene if you've seen the movie, and if you haven't, you should see the movie, and you're going to love this scene. It is hilarious. These robbers, guys trying to commit a crime, go steal some stuff. They're gathering, they're putting on their masks. The first guy, the first guy puts on the mask, and the other guy says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Get Michael Myers masks." The guy says, "This is Mike Myers." The other guy says, "I meant the killer. I meant a Halloween mask. The mask from Halloween," is what he says. He says, "This is a Halloween mask." And the guy says, "I mean the killer dude from Halloween." And then the guy says, "Oh, you mean Jason?" And then all the other guys in the car scream, "No!" It is great. Um, it is awesome. It is hilarious. And what it does is in that one scene, not only is it a great Michael Myers shout out in an unlikely place in action comedy, but kind of the best part about it is that it's playing on two of kind of the most obvious things out there. One is that Mike Myers and Michael Myers, like nobody's ever really like made that joke in such a big way as this movie of getting them confused. People call Michael Myers Mike Myers all the time. Uh, in a way that kind of annoys me more than when people call Michael Myers Jason, which they also address in this same scene. It's like, I mean, I dress as Michael Myers like every Halloween, and there's always people out in our neighborhood. We always count them. How many people are going to call you Jason tonight, Dad? Stuff like that. People always do it. Oh, look, it's Jason, and it's Michael, and also Mike Myers, Michael Myers. This addresses both of them in one scene. It's hilarious. It's a few seconds long. It's just great. Super props to Baby Driver. Awesome movie if you haven't seen it. Definitely see it if you never have. But yeah, definitely one of the best Michael Myers movie moments of all time. Movie references, I mean, of all time. All right. And the last one on my list for tonight, anyway, right now, and again, this is not an exhaustive, complete list by any means. It may never be complete because there's always more references happening, being made, and I'm actively trying to catalog them. So that is part of why we're doing this. You know, bring on your favorites and ones we haven't mentioned here. But um, one of my favorites, and again, this one a little bit different, not explicitly referencing Michael per se, but in the excellent Halloween movie, The Guest from 2014, starring the great Dan Stevens. Check out my interview with him from last year if you haven't already. My Cuckoo interview with Dan Stevens. He's awesome. Big Halloween enthusiast too. Holiday, I mean. Um, in The Guest, of course, lots of inspiration and homage paid to John Carpenter in general, to John Carpenter's Halloween specifically, but perhaps the best tribute to all things Carpenter in the film, at least in my opinion, is in the climax when our characters go to where the Halloween party is going to be, and there's the silver shamrock masks projected on the walls in the background, like you see in this shot. And yes, I am purposefully bringing it full circle back to Silver Shamrock, where we began with this discussion, the first film to reference its own franchise. And here we have The Guest referencing Halloween 3, not just the Halloween franchise, but Halloween 3 specifically. I love it. Again, not the first or not the only to reference, even specifically Halloween 3. There are others, but this one does it so good, so effectively, so cool. And again, an excellent movie. If you've never seen it, it is set on around Halloween. It is an action movie. It's a horror movie. It is great. Michael Monroe. It's like everybody talks about Michael Monroe, and it follows as like her breakthrough and all that. And I know it basically was, but for me, I saw her in The Guest first, and to me, that's her breakthrough role in my opinion, and of course, everything she's done since then has been excellent. But she's in it; she's awesome. Dan Stevens stars in it as The Guest. He's awesome. Excellent movie. Check it out if you haven't already. So there we go. That's some of my favorites. Just a few. But I would love to hear your thoughts on those that I've mentioned and why I love those and think they're extra cool. I'd love to hear some of your favorite just references. Again, sometimes it's just quick dialogue shout outs. It happens all the time in movies. And whenever it does, I try to make note of it. Sometimes I'll try to get an article out. I'm just trying to catalog all of them. So we're going to use this as like a hub and a gathering place. Comment now in the live chat, down in the comments if you're watching later on. Let us know what are some of your favorites. What are some that maybe most of us might not know about or might have forgotten about or might not be aware about. Some unlikely ones. And again, we're looking specifically at movies referencing the Halloween movies right now. We're going to do a whole nother discussion on TV series episodes that have referenced the franchise in various ways, because there's tons of those too. And I've been collecting and cataloging those as well. And then, of course, there's a whole other conversation about music and all the songs and different artists that have given Michael Myers and this franchise various shout outs over the years. I've talked about some of those here on previous Triple M's from time to time, but that's going to be worth another discussion too, because there's always more. Again, it could almost be like an annual discussion, but those are definitely some of my all-time favorites.